Hey, I'm Kristi Mitchell, and welcome to Unfudge Your Marketing, the podcast where we talk about what really happens when marketing doesn't go according to plan. Every week, I sit down with business owners and leaders to unpack the missteps, the experiments that didn't land, and the decisions they'd probably rethink if given a do-over. But more importantly, we talk about what they learned on the other side and what you can take with you as you build your own business. Success rarely comes from getting it right the first time. It comes from taking action, making mistakes, adjusting, and showing up again and again. If you've ever wondered whether you're the only one figuring this out as you go, you're in the right place. Hello. I am so excited for this conversation today. Today, I am welcoming Ally Machate to the show. Ally is the founder of the Writer's Ally. I knew I was going to butcher something in that introduction. A boutique publishing consultancy that helps entrepreneurs, consultants, and subject matter experts write the book and use it strategically for authority and business growth. A former acquiring editor at Simon & Schuster, she's been in the publishing industry since 1999, and she built her firm around a question most publishing services never ask. Is this even the right book for your goals? Today, she leads a team that guides authors from concept through publication and beyond, with a focus on making sure the book actually does something once it's out in the world. With that, I will welcome Ally to the show.
Hey, Kristi, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I always like to share how I met my guest. So Melissa Henry gets a shout out. She is a past guest and a fellow marketing connection that I've had for a number of years. And Melissa introduced us. So thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, indeed.
Awesome. Well, Ally, I'm excited for this conversation today because as we started kind of talking about before we came on air, I know people who have fallen into this trap with writing books in terms of waiting until the book is written to actually market the book. And given that I'm a marketing strategist, I'm always about the proactive, let's get started like yesterday, not like keep pushing off the marketing. So I'm really excited for this conversation today. I would love to just kick it over to you and ask, where do you want to begin the conversation?
Well, since you're a marketing expert, why don't we first talk about what marketing really is and how it needs to be thought of when it comes to marketing a book? Because there are, I think, some really important sort of misunderstandings or maybe some things people don't really know when they hear about how important it is to market their book.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. Such a great idea. I'll let you explain marketing.
Well, I think the most important thing is that when people hear about marketing their book, right, we have sort of like two camps. A lot of people hear about how important it is to market their book, but they're so focused on writing the book. They're so focused on making sure it's a good book, which, of course, is not a bad thing, right? Like, we want to make sure the book is good, but they're so narrowly focused on writing the book and writing a good book that they put off even thinking about marketing until the book is done. They think of that as a later problem, right? That's something they're going to have to figure out, maybe a little bit in advance of publication, but certainly that's something down the road.
Yes.
And the other camp are the people who have heard. Some of them are getting more educated these days, more people out there talking about it, and they understand, okay, marketing can't wait until the very end. I have to start seeding things. I have to start building an audience in advance for the book. I have to start warming people up and so on and so forth. And all of those things are important. As you know, obviously, starting to market the book before it is published is ideal, giving yourself a nice long lead time. And there are lots of tactics that you can perform along the way that help to make your launch more successful and help your book's results go further. But both of these camps are actually missing something really, really critical in the conversation around marketing a book, which is that most people, when they hear about marketing the book, are thinking in terms of tactics. Right. So they're thinking about, am I going to run ads? Am I going to do a giveaway? Am I going to have a web page for the book? Am I going to have a bunch of people read and review it? Right. What are the things? Am I going to do signings? And again, all of those things are important. But ultimately, if you don't think about how you're going to sell your book, if you don't think about the places your book needs to get into in order to get you the results you really want, if if you're not thinking about the people you need to connect with your book from the very, very beginning, what ends up happening is you fall into what I call the good book, wrong book problem, which is that you end up with a book that could be objectively very good. It could be well written. It could be well produced. All of those things could be in place. But you haven't solved the positioning problem. You haven't solved the question of marketability, which is different from marketing. And no amount of marketing tactics, no matter how much money you throw at marketing tactics for a book, if you haven't made sure the book is marketable in the first place, none of that is going to work.
Oh my gosh, there are so many things that I want to dig into. So the first thing I just want to say is this not only applies to books. Yes, our conversation today is very much focused on books and marketing books and authors. But if someone is listening to this show and they're like, well, I don't have a book, I don't want you to tune out, because all of these principles apply to marketing in general. And so often, I've actually had a past expert come on the show. She helps business owners with group programs, like establishing group programs. And she came on and we talked about this trap of like waiting to market the program until it's ready. And so many of those concepts, what we talked about then, I'm sure are going to resurface in this conversation today, Ally, because there's such value in talking about the thing that we're doing, whether it's a group program or a book or whatever the thing is. As a business owner, there's so much value in us talking about it to our audience sooner rather than later, so that we can get their feedback in real time and make sure that we're kind of like crafting this thing to be successful. So such a great first lesson to take away from this conversation is like talk about it sooner rather than later, as early as possible, really. It sounds like you're saying from this standpoint, especially on the book side, of alignment and making sure you're very clear on who is it that's going to be buying this book.
Yeah, and these things really need to be baked in from the very beginning, because it's incredibly hard to fix when the book is done. And once it's published, it's not fixable at all. Like if you've gotten close to the mark, sometimes you can recover a book, maybe fudge the copy a little bit. But generally speaking, if you've created a book that isn't strategically aligned, the right audience, the right goals, the right places, to have the book, the right tactics to support those goals, then like it's just too late. So yeah, you got to think about it really early from the very beginning. Pretty much as soon as you sit down to start writing, whatever that initial impetus was to start writing, make that shift into, okay, I started writing because I want to say this, or people are asking me about this, or I think this is really important. And now start thinking about who that is going to get that book. What do they really want to hear? What do they really need from you? The sweet spot of a marketable book is that Venn diagram, right? That place in the middle between what you really want to say and what you know is important and what your audience actually wants and needs and is looking for.
Yes, which I love that you just said that, because that's how I talk about marketing messaging in general. It's like so often we as business owners are like, we have to tell people this. It's so incredibly important. They need to know. And it's like, okay, but do they? Like, do they care? Like the way that you're positioning that, like, is that a problem that's keeping them up at night? Is that something that's even on their mind? Because if it's not, like your message is not going to resonate and it's just going to get lost in the sea of marketing noise that we're all surrounded with every day. So I love that point. And I also really loved what you said earlier about the tactics, because I talk about this all the time in the world of marketing strategy. Is sometimes we get so excited to just like jump into a new tactic, but if we're not starting at this foundational strategy level of like, who is this for and what are we doing? How are we showing up? Where are we showing up? And how do we kind of make sure all these efforts are tied together? We end up running like a chicken with our head cut off, like doing all these things. And then like, wait a minute, I didn't get the results that I wanted. And it's probably because we didn't have a strategy. So, okay, I'm not going to get on my soapbox. I'm going to get off. What else? Where else are we going with this conversation, Ally? Because I feel like there's so much great information that can be tied to so many different areas of marketing.
Yeah, I mean, like we can just dig into this a little bit deeper even. So, let's connect the dots, right? Just as an example, advertising is something a lot of authors are thinking about. Do I run Amazon ads? Do I run Facebook ads? What are the different kinds of advertising? All of those ad platforms and the power of those ad platforms is the granularity with which you can dictate who you want to reach. right? You know, like you can go in there, they're asking about demographics, age ranges, what other books those people might be reading and looking at, you know, what do they do for a living? Like all kinds of questions. And you can really pinpoint all of those things depending on the platform. On Facebook, for example, I don't know if this is currently true, but you used to be able to put in like hobbies, right? Like what kind of things does this person like? And then Facebook would look and say, oh, well, this person likes a certain amount of pages in that category. So they might be interested. They might be in your ad group. So it's really hard to even leverage that tactic effectively if you don't already know the answers to those questions, right? So you can see just in that one example, if you haven't already done that strategic thinking about who your book is really, really for, spending money on those tactics, and people think, oh, ads, yeah, it's like 5 cents per click, or, you know, I can put a budget of $100. It seems like, you know, not a big investment, but the truth is that's only to get you started. When you really run a successful Amazon ad campaign, it can be thousands of dollars, and that's thousands of dollars wasted if you don't really know how to tailor those ads to reach the right people.
Yes. Oh, wow. That's so interesting. So important. So not only knowing who is this book for, but how exactly are we going to find these people and know these other things about them? So, I mean, I'm sure there's a ton that goes into that and all the work that you do one-on-one with your individual clients, but what advice can you kind of share to give people a sense of how to consider those things?
Well, hopefully you're hearing this before you've published the book. So that's the first thing. You know, if I've caught you before you've published the book, then I hope you're thinking really hard about the answers to these questions. And it's really sort of these 3 primary questions. What do you really want the book to do for you out in the world? Many people will say, well, I just want the book to help people, right? I just want it to be out there. Like it's a solution. I know people need this. I want to help people. I don't have dreams of being a huge bestseller. You know, I just kind of want to put it out there and I want it to be good. Well, that's not a very specific goal, right? That's really hard to turn into a marketing strategy. And also not knowing exactly what you want the book to do for you. Again, there's all these downstream decisions that get affected by that. Just as a brief example, I know somebody once who came to us who was talking about creating a book, wanted to be a professional speaker, wanted to get out there at live events and be the keynote speaker and build a career around that. Was thinking about writing a book and wanted to start with an ebook only because an ebook was less expensive and it felt like an easier sort of dipping your toe in the water to experiment. But I explained right away, well, if your primary objective here is to be speaking live in front of large audiences and all you have is an ebook, you're going to be leaving a lot of money on the table, right? Because back of the room sales is one of the largest sources of revenue for nonfiction authors. People go to an event, they hear you speak, they dig what you're saying, they want to buy your book, they want to get your book signed, right? So knowing his goal was to be a speaker changed the publishing plan. It even changed what format he wanted to publish.
That makes so much sense.
So it's really, really important. That's number 1. What are your goals? What do you want the book to actually do for you? The second thing is, who are the people you need to connect with to make those goals happen, right? In that guy's case, he needed to connect with event organizers, not necessarily the people who were in the audience. So the book did need to appeal to the people who ultimately were going to buy it, but it also needed to show very clearly to event organizers that he was someone who could get up on a stage and tell a great story and command an audience, right? So it needed to showcase his abilities in a certain way, both to the readers, but also to this other group of stakeholders who was going to be really important in reaching his goals. Last but not least, you know what the book is for, you know who you need to reach to get it. You want to think about, what are you doing in the book? What are you creating structurally that is going to satisfy that person? What exactly does that person need? What pain point are you addressing? What problem are you solving? What thing are you teaching them to do or inspiring them to envision that they didn't do before? And a lot of people, when they write a book, they think the exact opposite. Again, I'm sure you've heard this all the time when it comes to marketing, right? They think about wanting to reach the largest number of people. So they think, well, my book is for everybody, right? I'm going to write it so that it has something for everyone. I'm going to make it as all-inclusive as possible. And it's actually the exact wrong thing to do, right? It's the exact opposite. And I like to say that if you're trying to connect with everybody, you're going to connect with nobody, because it's just too broad and too unspecific. And the readers are not going to have that feeling of, oh, right, this is what I needed. This is what I was looking for. This book is written for me. Without those three things in place, those are the foundation of all your marketing decisions, from how you bake in those foundational pieces in the manuscript to what tactics you decide to try later on. All of it hinges on getting those three questions clear in your mind and in alignment.
Yes. Can you restate them again? Just all together. Yep. I'm a visual.
What do you want the book to do with you out? What do you want the book to do for you out in the world? What's your big goals for the book beyond selling books? Who are the people you need to reach in order to make that goal happen? And what exactly is it that those people need or want to hear from you specifically? What is it that they're looking to solve that you are going to try to fix for them with your book?
Yes, I love that. I'm such a framework person, and like boiling it down to like those three. I mean, they're simple questions, but there's a lot of like nuance and importance to answering them and being very clear on those things. I'm wondering, Ally, if we could go back to that first question, the goal of the book. I really love that. That example you gave is so perfect. And I love sharing examples on this show because it helps listeners to really like digest it and envision it. So what are some of the other goals that people have when they write a book? Like, and what are, because you gave the example of like what's not really a good goal to have, right? Like, I just want to help people. So like, what are examples of like good goals and maybe some not so good goals to have with writing a book?
So some really common and clear goals that you can really build something around might include things like, in that example, somebody knowing they want to be a professional speaker and they want to leverage the book to get them on stages. Knowing that you have a group program or a course, perhaps, and you want that book to prime or prep people with your foundational, philosophies so that they're ready for that group program or course, and that it's going to lead them into making that purchase. Some people use a book as a pure lead generator, right? As a list builder, and they'll go out and they'll give the book away to thousands and thousands of people. Again, strategically, it doesn't help you to have 10,000 people on a list if they're not, right, your target clients, but you can very effectively leverage a book and give it away and get lots and lots of people who could be your target audience onto your list with a book. So all of those kinds of business goals, really anything like positioning yourself with more visibility as an expert in something, transitioning into a new niche. If you need to show how your expertise applies to a slightly different audience than maybe you've been serving because you want to switch into a new sort of portion of your industry, all of those can be really, really powerful and effective goals for a book.
I love that. That's so helpful. Because I think so often, right, it could be so easy to be like, well, I want to write a book because I can help more people that way, right? Especially those of us who are coaches and consultants, like especially if we're solos or we have small teams, we can't serve everyone. And so a book is a nice way to be like, okay, I'm going to help more people without like totally burning myself out. So I really like how you give that very specific framework of like sound goals to have when you're thinking about writing a book. Ally, my mind goes to, again, right, since the theme of the show is marketing mistakes, my mind goes to, and I'm wondering, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here, which I don't like to do that to my guests. So if it's not a fair question, tell me. But is there an example of someone that whether you worked with them or just kind of saw it from a distance, where they weren't clear on that goal and it ended up to like just really not working out the way that they wanted it to?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We had a consulting client a few years ago, gentleman who came to us, and he'd been running very successfully for years a kind of workshop-based business. So he was doing these live retreats, mostly for corporations, but not exclusively. But his whole model was built around these weekend retreats that he had very carefully, structured and tested over years and done them all over the place. And he wanted to switch from being an intensive and retreat and workshop leader. And again, he wanted to make that switch into being a keynote speaker. He wanted to just, kind of level up the kind of work that he was doing with people. He wanted to get on stages and share his bigger ideas as opposed to just working in the trenches, and kind of wanted to shift the way his business was working, where he would be at the top of the funnel doing these big keynotes talks, for which, of course, he would get paid, lead people into the business, and then he would have certified coaches who would be running the actual events and the retreats. So great idea, makes total sense. A book is a really good tool for that kind of goal, right? The problem was the book that he had written when he came to us and was almost finished with was a book version of the workshops that he had been teaching. Now, on the surface, that doesn't seem like a bad idea, right? He knows the content's successful. He knows he's been creating transformation with people. He knows the workshops work. But the problem is he was sending that book out to people and he wasn't getting booked. So he came to me to talk about marketing. But what I ended up having to explain to him was that the book he'd written was not in alignment with the people he needed to reach. He was sending a very practical, nuts and bolts kind of workbook to people that he wanted to see him as a big idea keynote speaker. So he was sending it to all these conference organizers, and the book was very good. And they could certainly see in the book that he knew his stuff and that he was an intelligent guy, but they couldn't make the leap between seeing this person who had this very nuts and bolts, hands-on kind of workshop style, how that would translate to somebody standing up on a stage for 40, 45 minutes and just giving these big idea talks, right? It's like they just couldn't connect the dots. It was the wrong kind of book. And it was a very difficult conversation because, of course, it was a little heartbreaking to him to hear that he had put all this time and energy into a book that wasn't going to work, for the way that he wanted. But the upshot of that conversation was that once I laid it out for him in those terms, he saw it right away. And we were able to come up with a new strategy for him to write a newer, shorter, more focused book that would display his thought leadership in the way that he needed to get on stages, and use the other book elsewhere in his funnel. So it wasn't a waste of time, but it wasn't the right book to send out for that particular goal.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that example. And as you were talking through it, I'm like, but he probably could still use the first version, just in a different way.
Right.
So I love that. That's awesome. And honestly, I love to hear that he was open-minded enough to shift gears and take your advice and do the thing, because so often that is not the case. I'm sure you've had experiences. I know I have, where business owners are like, nope, I'm doing it this way. And they don't like the advice. And then it's okay. That's their decision to move on. So I love that story. It does.
I mean, I think it's one of the most heartbreaking things for me, honestly, in this business. It's being able to see the potential, right? And to understand, like, this person is going to fail. And it's not because they suck. And it's not because they're not smart, or that the thing that they're doing or teaching isn't good, but you can just see that they're doing it wrong. And, it's my job to try to educate them and convince them and help them to understand why I think they're going about it wrong. It's true. I mean, sometimes people get it. Sometimes people get it. They see the amount of work involved to switch gears and they abandon the project entirely. They're like, nah, I just don't want to do it. And some people just insist on doing it their own way. And I have occasionally heard back from people. It has happened that I've, encountered people who have come back a few years later, sort of hat in hand, and been like, you were right. I'm sorry, I didn't listen to you.
Yes.
This didn't work. But, sometimes they just go off and they do their thing, and I wish them luck, but I know they're not going to get the results they really want.
Yes. Oh my God, Ellie. It is crazy to me, like, how many parallels to, like, the work you do and the work I do and our experiences with clients. So similar. Like, there's so many things that I could, like, just insert a few different words and it would apply to the way that I work with clients and my experiences as well. So
well, like you said, marketing is marketing, right? Like, there are things that are unique to any given thing. You market a book a little differently than you might market a course or a program, but the fundamentals of how marketing works are all the same, because it's all about connecting with humans, right? Like, whatever you're trying to sell fundamentally is about connecting with other humans who need or want the thing, and like how to get them, to know that. So honestly, any of your listeners, like, if you have already applied these principles in your business, you've got a really great head start. The key is to not forget about those same principles or think they don't apply equally to your book. Your book, in very many ways, is just another product in your business. No different than
Yes.
a course or a group program or a one-to-one service or a piece of software, anything else that you sell.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, Ally, this has been such a great conversation. I feel like we covered so much helpful ground for those tuning in to the show. As we get ready to wrap up here, I'm curious if there's any last piece of advice you want to leave.
If you already have a book and it's not doing well, and your instinct is to throw more money at it or do more marketing, if you think more is the solution, I want to encourage you to take a pause and just think about the things we've talked about. And I know it might be the hard conclusion to come to for some of you, but it's better to figure out that you made a mistake in creating the book or packaging the book in the first place. Figure that out now. Reissue a new edition, write a new book, right? Whatever that is, rather than pouring more time and energy and money into something that is just fundamentally not designed to work well in the first place. You're just going to waste time and money. And the most important thing is that you're going to give yourself the wrong message. If you're feeling like your book isn't working because there's something inherently wrong with you, you're not smart enough. No one cares what you have to say. Who are you to write a book? You suck. You shouldn't quit your day job, right? Like if any of that is going through your mind, I encourage you to just try and take a pause, listen to this episode, come back to your draft, your idea, your book from that strategic point of view, and try to take the emotion out of it and just analyze it, because more often than not, the problem is not you. There's just something strategically off about the book or your marketing plans themselves. And I hate to hear that people quit too early because they just took the wrong message away from the results that they received.
Yes. Oh my God, that's such great advice. Absolutely love it. And such a great segue, because very lastly, as we wrap up here, I want you to share with listeners how they can connect with you and learn more about the work that you and your team are doing.
Well, these questions are the first questions that we ask of any new client through something we call the Positioning and Publishing Plan. So you can find out more about that at our website, thewritersally.com. And I have a special gift for your audience. You can include the link in the show notes. It's a 25-minute webinar called Don't Write the Wrong Book. And it covers all of the things that we're talking about today, plus walks people through a little bit more. It's a 5-step process instead of a 3-step process, gives a little bit more depth, and just really helps you think more strategically about your book to help make sure you're not writing and publishing the wrong book for those goals or that audience. And they can get it at offers.thewritersally.com/unfudge your marketing, know you, just like you have the title, unfudge your marketing. And I would love for you to go and check it out.
Yes, that's awesome. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I want to go check it out. Writing a book has been on my back burner list of things, life goals I'd like to achieve. And now you're honestly making me happy that I didn't start writing it yet, because it sounds like I need to start with your resources first to save myself the trouble, because I'm all about strategy. So I absolutely love it. Ally, thank you so, so much for taking the time to come on the show, share your expertise, your wisdom, your perspective based on all of the authors that you have helped and the years of experience you bring to what you do. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Until next time.